Ready to wear, off the rack, custom, bespoke, made to measure. What's the difference and which kind of suit is best for you? My name is Brock, you're watching The Modest Man, and today we're talking about suits. So, you need a new suit. The good news is there are tons of options these days, probably more brands than there ever have been for us guys to choose from. But the bad news is, there are a lot of options and it can be a bit overwhelming. I want to help you choose the best type of suit for your situation and your budget. Pretty much all suits fall into three main categories. Number one is ready to wear or off the rack. Number two is made to measure, and number three is bespoke. And before we dive into these, we have to talk about the word custom. Custom is used to describe anything that's not ready to wear, anything beyond off the rack. Now, if you buy a suit off the rack and you get it tailored, that's not a custom suit, that's just an off the rack suit that's been altered. Custom means made to measure or full bespoke or anything in between. But don't be fooled into thinking that custom and made to measure and bespoke are all the same thing, because they're not. The word bespoke has been so widely misused that it's almost lost its true meaning. A bespoke suit is way different, fundamentally different than a made-to-measure suit that you might buy from an online made-to-measure brand like Indochino. A bespoke suit is made from scratch just for you. In other words, no fabric is cut, no patterns are made until your measurements have been taken. Made-to-measure suits, on the other hand, start with a pattern. So there's already a pattern and it's just adjusted based on your inputs, but it's not made from scratch like a bespoke suit. Bespoke is much more time intensive than made to measure or off the rack. It requires more fabric, it requires more time, and it requires a lot more skill. So it requires a lot more money. To make things simple, just remember this. Just like all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon, all bespoke suits are custom, but not all custom suits are bespoke. Okay, now that we've got that cleared up, let's look at the three categories of suits, and I'll use examples from my own closet to show you what these suits look and feel like. For the off-the-rack suit, we'll be using a suit that I got from Suit Supply. For the made-to-measure suit, we'll be using one of my suits from Oliver Wicks, which is one of my favorite made-to-measure brands. And then for the bespoke suit, we'll be using a full bespoke suit from Allen David in New York. Let's start with ready to wear. So ready to wear, aka off the rack or off the peg for you Brits, is the most popular type of suit, and Suit Supply is one of the more popular ready-to-wear brands. People tend to associate Suit Supply with value. In other words, when you buy a suit there, you get a lot of bang for your buck. They do have a made-to-measure program, but the suit that I got is off the rack plus some alterations. I think most people, when they shop at Suit Supply, are buying off the rack. Now, I wanted to see what all the Suit Supply hype was about, so I bought a Lazio suit in navy, size 32. You know, my normal size is like a 34 short, but that one was a little too big and a little too long on me. So I guess Suit Supply runs a little big, at least in their Lazio cut. For reference, I'm 5'6" in shoes and 120 pounds after dinner. So I did get some alterations done in-house. They do alterations in-house at all the retail locations. I got the sleeves shortened, the pants hemmed, and the jacket shortened just a little bit. The total price of this suit, including alterations, was $611. That was $530 plus the cost of alterations. The final product looked acceptable, though in my opinion, you can tell that this suit was not made for my frame. It was made for a taller and I think a slimmer guy. I can tell just by wearing it that I am not the ideal body type for this garment. Even after getting it shortened, it doesn't look bad. You know, it looks pretty good, better than most off-the-rack suits, but there's still some tension and some pulling in certain places. It's less about how it looks and more about the way it feels when you're wearing it. Now, I've been wearing custom suits for a few years now, and I have to say that this Suit Supply suit doesn't feel as comfortable or as fitted as my custom suits. It feels a little bit oversized, the proportions are just a little bit off, and it's just not the most comfortable suit in my closet. I have to say, I'm a little bit disappointed in my first and what will probably be my only Suit Supply suit. At over $600, it's not really a cheap suit for off the rack, and I was kind of expecting more. That said, I still think Suit Supply, given their range of cuts and sizes, is a good option if you're gonna go off the rack. Okay, let's move on to made to measure. Now, whether you buy online and submit your own measurements or you go to a retail showroom and get measured by a tailor, most modern custom suit companies are selling made-to-measure suits. I'm talking about Oliver Wicks, Black Lapel, Indochino, Blank Label, Not Standard. The list goes on and on and on. They all basically have the same process. You submit your measurements, you pick out your suit, which is basically the color and the fabric and the weight, and then you add all of your little customizations that you want. They take your specs, they send it to their factory overseas, usually in China, and then your suit arrives at your house 3 to 5 weeks later. It's a hit or miss process, and for most first-time made-to-measure customers, I actually think it's mostly miss. It's just really, really hard to get a suit that fits perfectly your first time using the self-measurement process. Even with professional tailors taking your measurements, it really just comes down to their experience and skill level, and things can go horribly wrong. One anecdotal lesson that I've learned is there's really no correlation between how polished and how slick or high-end a brand feels and the end result, how your suit or shirt actually looks. I've had some lackluster experiences with brands that have really slick showrooms, really charismatic employees. They give you whiskey while you get measured and flip through fabric swatches. So, just because they have a nice brand and a nice customer experience doesn't mean that they have a good product. And so your first made-to-measure suit probably won't be perfect. And I just want you to prepare yourself for that, because a lot of guys are disappointed with their first made-to-measure suit. Now, that said, I still love made-to-measure. I think that it can be great if you're willing to put in a little bit of time to dial in your measurements, especially if you stick with the same brand, and you're patient, because this takes time. Some of my favorite suits are made-to-measure, including this bright navy summer weight Oliver Wicks suit that I've been wearing for a couple of years. Compared to my Suit Supply suit, this one conforms to my body in a much more comfortable and flattering way. I think the suit looks better on me than the Suit Supply suit, but more importantly, it feels better. It's more comfortable to wear. I think a lot of guys aren't comfortable in suits because their suits actually don't fit very well, so it's kind of tight in the wrong places, loose in other places, but a really well-made suit should feel pretty comfortable while you're wearing it. So for me, Oliver Wicks has been the best of the online made-to-measure brands that I've tried, but I've reviewed a lot of the big made-to-measure brands over on themodestman.com, so definitely do your research before you buy. Okay, then finally we have full bespoke. Now, I have always wanted to try a bespoke suit, but the price is prohibitive. We're talking about a couple $1,000s, potentially a lot more just for one suit. One reason for the high price tag is the labor. Making a suit from scratch is labor intensive and it requires a lot of experience. Then you have the fabric. A suit requires 3 to 4 yards of fabric and all of the trimmings, the buttons and the lining and the collar felt and all of that stuff. Simply put, bespoke is very expensive. So when Alan David Custom, a 5th generation suit maker out of New York City, offered to make me a suit, I jumped on that opportunity. I'd actually read about Alan David Custom over on He Spoke Style, and Brian described the experience as no frills bespoke. And this description made sense as soon as I stepped into their office showroom in Manhattan. My experience with this company was very unique. It's not like a polished, really slick showroom where they have a little bar and everybody's dressed up in suits. It's an old school suit maker, and their focus is really on the product, not the customer experience. And I have to say, the final product is fantastic. Even compared to my best made-to-measure suits, this one is just better. Like in my favorite Oliver Wicks suit, there are these little details, just like little wrinkles and pulling and really small things that are almost impossible to fix with made-to-measure that just kind of bother me a little bit. But with this Alan David suit, it's very close to perfect. It doesn't look like night and day different than my Oliver Wicks suit. It's more about the feel. Like to an untrained eye, most people would probably say, yeah, both of those suits fit really well. But when you wear them, it really does feel different. A bespoke tailor sees all the little asymmetries in your body and they adjust for that with your suit. So for example, when Alan himself was taking my measurements, he noticed that I had a slight sway back posture, which means that I have a little more curve through my lower back than the average guy. And he adjusted for that in my suit, which is something that I haven't been able to fix with any made-to-measure suit. I swear, the guy is like a chiropractor. But what really makes the bespoke process special is the basted fitting. There's an extra step with bespoke. So basically, the first time you try on the suit, it's sewn together with a very loose temporary thread, and it's not cut down to your exact measurements yet. So basically, there's room to make major adjustments, stuff that can't be fixed after the fact, before they actually cut and sew it for the final product. So for example, for my basic fitting, we decided that the button stance had to be moved down a little bit. And that's something that can't be changed after your suit is made. So there are certain things like the button stance, the width of the shoulders, that are very difficult or even impossible to tailor after the suit's already been made. This step, this basted fitting, does not exist with the made to measure process. So with made to measure, if that suit arrives and it has a major problem, like the button stance is off, you're gonna have to get it remade. Now after the basted fitting, they put together the suit for real. You come in for your final fitting or your second to last fitting, depending on little tiny adjustments that need to be made, and then you get your suit. And this process does take a little bit longer than even made to measure. You know, expect it to take a couple months. But the end result is a 100% unique suit that was literally made just for you. If you go bespoke, your suit's gonna look and feel amazing. So, which type of suit is best for you? Well, as is often the case, it really depends on your individual situation. What do you need the suit for? You know, how many do you already have? Do you have a limited budget? Do you have a limited time frame? Are you still growing? You know, are you on a mission to lose weight or pack on muscle? Going custom, whether it's made to measure or bespoke, takes time. It's gonna take at least a month. So if you need a suit next weekend for your buddy's wedding, you gotta go off the rack. So for most guys, here's what I would suggest. First, try to find something that fits off the rack and that can be adjusted with just minor alterations to look really good on you. So when you're shopping off the rack, anywhere from Zara to Suit Supply to Brooks Brothers to Nordstrom, wherever, try to make sure that you find something that fits in the shoulders and the hips and the seat and the crotch area, you know, the stuff that really can't be adjusted. Expect to take a few extra days and pay a little bit extra money, $50 to $100, for basic alterations like getting the pants hemmed, the jacket taken in, or the sleeve shortened. Now, if the sleeves are too long, make sure that the buttons aren't functioning. You know, make sure that they don't actually button and unbutton, because that makes it really hard to shorten the sleeves. Now, if you can't find anything off the rack and you have time, you have at least a few weeks, preferably a couple of months, consider going custom. If money's not an issue, I highly recommend going bespoke. If you're on a budget, which most of us are, go made to measure. Now, when you're looking for the best made to measure brand, prioritize brands that have retail locations, showrooms where you can be measured by a person near your house or your office. Basically, if you can visit a showroom and get measured in person, that's almost always better than submitting your own measurements online. I'm not saying it always works out. Sometimes the person measuring you doesn't know what they're doing, but it's usually better than measuring yourself. Now, don't automatically go to the big brands like Indochino, because there are a lot of small made-to-measure custom suiting shops around the world that serve their local market, and a lot of these do really good work. So I would hit Google, hit Yelp, see if you can find something local before jumping into one of the big brands. Now, if you can't find something local, if you can't find something that you can go to in person, you can go online. Out of all the brands I've tried, my two favorite are Oliver Wick's and Black Lapel. If I had to choose one, I'd say Oliver Wick's is my favorite, but remember, I've taken a long time to really dial in my measurements and work with them over the years. So, you know, Black Lapel has only made me one suit, and it fit pretty well. But I can't guarantee that you're gonna have a great experience with either of these brands. Made to measure is tough, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. This is just my experience so far. Either way, get it tailored. So even if you go online made to measure, if you go off the rack, you know, give yourself a week and $50 to $100 to get that suit tailored, because it's those little things that are gonna just elevate it and get it as close to perfect as possible. Most made-to-measure brands give you an alteration credit. A lot of off-the-rack brands will do free basic alterations in-house. Places like Nordstrom always have a tailor on premises, so you know, no matter what kind of suit you get, expect to get it tailored. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have the time and the money to go full bespoke, I really enjoyed the experience, and I love the suit that Alan David made me, so, you know, highly recommend that too. All right, guys, there's so many options when it comes to suit buying, so I hope this video helps you navigate that decision process. If you have any questions about buying a suit, let me know down in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, and until next time, stay stylish.